Hi all and welcome to this series. We welcome you to join us for AI Upskilling Framework. And hi Hannah, hi Jose, happy you're here. Thank you for your time.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining and thanks for the invitation, Alex and Jose.
Yeah, thanks for everything.
Thank you. So we're starting right now. We are from Germany somehow, and we have seen the AI upskilling framework posted by LinkedIn Learning team on understanding, applying, building, training, and also deep specialization. So we are running this time on the second session for all professionals, including leader, managers, including prompt engineering and Copilot, and so on. And we are happy to discuss this one with you. Somehow there are a lot of information from the LinkedIn Learning team about this one. So we share this information also with you on the comments, so you can follow up what is the framework is about, so what is exactly is behind, and also what kind of learning paths do we have on the second level. So we're talking today about applying, about this one. And you see also in the comments, right now we shared some learning path about application, applying generative AI as a creative professional or a business professional, or perhaps also for tech leaders. Let's discuss what is behind this one and why are we doing this right now somehow. We have seen that the Harvard Business Review have done some research on how people are really using Gen AI in 2025. And what we see right now is what we are following this one is what is enhanced learning is going for 8 to 4. We are getting productive on generative code for 47 to 5, but also from 19th to 8 on improving the code and also be creative somehow. So perhaps the years before we were searching for ideas somehow, so generating ideas, what we need to do and so on, or doing specific research. It's moving back a little bit, and I think we are getting more productive right now. What we see on the second level is, or perhaps what we will do till the last level somehow. We started on the level 2 here. So just discussing how to activate and unlock productivity. So you get your Copilot. We will talk about prompt engineering in a few seconds. And then on the next sessions, we will do a little bit more somehow deep dives, like here in the Copilot Studio, later on Azure Foundry, and finally then if we're talking about models and also fine-tuning the models, creating the models, maintaining the models, we will talk about Azure Machine Learning and so the stuff behind there. If we see what Microsoft is doing here from the end user perspective, the first step, and this is a topic for today, is to get some Copilots on running and how to use them. If you talk about prompt engineering somehow, what is then about with some examples. Jose and Hannah will talk this kind in a moment. After we have done the Copilot on Copilot Studio, we can create agents and also host them also on Azure Foundry, create them more, the development. You can do a lot of agents here, but this is a topic for perhaps level 4, then level 5. And Copilot Studio would be the third one. But you see, we are doing from the left to the right, the whole end user scenario here somehow. And I'm happy to give the stage to Hannah and Jose. And the stage is yours. Please welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much, Alex, for the introduction. What we now want to do is to understand first what's behind our chatbots that we're talking about, what's behind Copilot, for example. And behind all of this, we have large language models, also called LLMs. And when we think about our chatbots that we're using day to day, and the LLMs that are behind it, we may think that those LLMs, they already know everything. They can answer everything perfectly that we want to know. But actually, that's not the case. There have been some studies made and some research done which show that actually LLMs, they struggle with logic. Something that you might not have anticipated. So what we know is that LLMs, they are great with language, but they're not actually calculators or planners. And as we see here, even GPT-4, which is one of the newest LLMs that we use, um, makes basic logic errors when it comes to reasoning and when it's not specified what the task should be that we expect from the LLM to make. Um, so in a business context, what it means is that you cannot expect the most accurate financials or timelines or KPIs unless you guide the model step by step through the process and guiding it to the result that you want. So what we see on the next slide is that knowing that, this means the better prompts you write, which means the better instructions you give to the model, the smarter the AI will be. So that means that AI is only as smart as the prompt behind it. And most people, what happens is that they ask too little. They make very generic questions and then become disappointed with the results because the results then are also very generic. And a good prompt, as we see here, is not just a question. It's like a brief you tell to the model. And this is where prompt engineering comes in. And this is also what we see here on the example on the slide. On the left-hand side, we have a very short question, which says a juggler can juggle 16 balls. Half of the balls are golf balls and half of the golf balls are blue. How many blue golf balls are there? And then we expect the answer in a numeric term. And the model implies that the answer is 8, which is wrong. And then on the right-hand side, if we then add just a little more instructions behind it and say, let's think through this step by step, then the model applies reasoning and comes to the correct answer. And this exactly is a topic that we want to talk more about today, which is also called prompt engineering. And if you want to have reliable outputs from tools like Microsoft Copilot or also Azure OpenAI, then you should definitely think about how to write better prompts so that you have a high quality output. So on the next slide, we can hand over to Jose for some more information.
Yeah, thanks, Hannah. As Hannah said, better prompts make smarter AI, but I think it's very important to highlight how smarter they can become, because prompting is not important, it's essential to get the best out of your AI applications. Um, Take a look at these numbers. Just by asking your model to think step by step, that chain of thought, or simply to make it elicit how it thinks and to actively think on a topic before giving you a response, we jump from single digit numbers. So I'm talking about 10% on GSM 8K. This is a grade school math benchmark. A benchmark is a test of, in this case, 8,500 tests and questions to check how good are LLMs at grade school math. right? And it jumps from 10% to 40% just asking and telling it to think. It's really, really impressive. And if we look at other benchmarks, this goes up to 80% on multi-arith, another benchmark. Then with only a handful of work examples on different thinking paths or methods, we can hit 58%. That's more than half the problem solved with almost no extra training, just prompting. Also, there's another technique which is called self-consistency. I know prompt engineering sounds scary. It's not. It can be a lot easier, which is in simple terms to tell your AI to generate different solutions and score each one, picking the most voted. That's consistent. And then we raise up another 18 points. And yes, these improvements are accumulative. They add on top of each other. That is how important is prompting. Breaking tasks in smaller subproblems with least to most, that's one spectacular example. And we go from 16% of a score to 99% on the scan another benchmark. This isn't magic, it's the power of smart prompting. Um, so I would say let's dive in, experiment boldly, and unlock the full potential of AI with prompting. And Hannah has prepared a very, very interesting set of examples for you.
Perfect. Um, yeah, then I would suggest to continue with understanding what prompt engineering actually means. So, what does it mean to write a prompt? What does it mean to do prompt engineering? And a prompt is just simply a message that you send to your chatbot, what you type into the input field, and then what gets sent to the LLM. And then when we look at prompt engineering, you can imagine prompt engineering like programming with natural language, or also simply said, how you talk to the AI. So some call it the method that of how you guide the AI to give you exactly what you want. Also the science or also magic behind generating the output, the high quality output that you desire. And it's also not about just getting answers. What we also want to focus on today is how do you get AI to be useful in your day-to-day work. So also how you prompt um, work tasks, for example, and how you make the most out of the chatbots that you have available. And to understand this concept, we can have a look at another um, another prompt engineering example that Jose is giving.
Yeah, well, what I was mentioning before, even prompt engineering has a lot of very interesting words, um, and even the term prompt engineering, the engineering part may scare you if you are a business or you're working non-technical role. Uh, don't let it really scare you. Just applying common sense, chain of thought, which we mentioned several times. It's simply asking the model to think out loud. Zero shot is to give just one example. Uh, you show, or few shot is just showing it a handful of examples. There's no secret formula, just good instructions. That makes sense. And speaking of practice, I'm also excited to share that I'm finalizing a hands-on course on prompting for non-technical audience designed to take you from first steps to advanced techniques in an easy and simple way. No buzzwords, just examples and going through and understanding common sense, basically. You can follow me on the link below on LinkedIn or check my LinkedIn author page. The course should appear around September.
Nice.
Thanks, Anna.
That's a great information for everyone who wants to get even deeper into prompt engineering. And what I'd like to for everyone to understand first before we get into the examples is that there's also something called context engineering. And it's a bit different from what prompt engineering is. When we look at the box in the middle of the slide, we see that prompt engineering is a subset of context engineering. So prompt engineering is what you say to the chatbot in the exact moment. This is what you type into the input field as we defined before. But context engineering is the whole system around it, which means memory, constraints, history, and it's what the model already knows. So the knowledge of the model that it already has at the time you're giving your prompt to the chatbot. And you can think of those prompts as normal conversations and the context as everything that makes those conversations smarter over time. So everything that the model knows without you specifying it. And for example, in Copilot Studio, in Azure iStudio, you can make use of context engineering, which is especially helpful if you work with company internal chatbots. You can give a lot of knowledge already in advance to the chatbots, like company information, details on data that the chatbot should be using. All of that can be stored in the context. So yeah, now I would suggest to dig into some examples that we brought to you today. And first, we want to have a look at overall the 5 elements of a great prompt, which you can see here. And if you follow these 5 steps, I would say you get at least an 80% better output from your prompts that you're writing. And we will have a look one by one now with examples. And yeah, you can, I don't know, save it, make a screenshot, whatever. And then you can use this logic to structure your prompts. You don't always need all of those elements, but then you can just pick the one that you think is the most useful in your case. And yeah,
Yeah,
depending on your use case, I think, Jose, that's what you wanted to mention.
yes. It always depends, right? What's your goal? Because as mentioned before, common sense has a lot to say in prompting, because at the end it has to make sense, the prompt and the section. So the 5 idle aspects and sections that Hannah mentioned, they are vital, but you may not need them, or depends on what you do, you may need some more. It depends on your use case, right? On the task you want your AI to achieve. A side role, for example, we can define tone if you're generating text and you want it to be written in a certain way, right? Or you can also use the limiters to put these element sections into headers that group them, so it's easier to reference and find them by the AI model. Or if there is input information, we can add a section aside from the output that defines the input, because depending on the complexity we want to define, to avoid loosey interpretation. So if we don't understand the input the user is giving to me, an AI, how can I do a good work? And also the other thing is that latest models do not require many examples, so they usually excel at zero shot. Sometimes they need even one example. So at the end, it's just basic common sense and to adapt to the upcoming LLMs, which, for example, reasoning models, a lot of them have already engraved these think step by step, right? So they have kind of the model itself is behaving like it's using chain of thought. What do you think, Hannah?
Yes, exactly. Um, so now let's have a look at each of those elements one by one and explain what's behind those terms. So first, we always suggest to specify the scenario that you're in. And By doing this, you help AI to deliver faster, clearer, and also more relevant answers. When you look at the slides on the left-hand side, I just asked the AI to explain to me what Gen AI is, because that's what I wanted to know. But what I got was a very, very long answer, which of course is nice. I can read it, but it's not exactly what I was looking for in a business context. So on the right-hand side, you see how I can get more valuable output by just adding some context about the scenario that I'm in. Because then I asked explain Gen AI as before, but I only want a 2-sentence long answer and one example of how Microsoft uses Gen AI. And this shows that now I get a very precise answer, clear and structured as I wanted it to be. And I see that the model performs even better when it knows who it's talking to and what the goal is. So explain Gen AI in general, it could mean anything. So you really need to set the scene. And you can use even short, but then clear context to get a better result. What we also recommend as a next prompt element is to always assign a role to the chatbot. I already mentioned it before, because this is one of the easiest wins that you can have, assigning a role. Because without a role, the model just makes assumptions, it makes guesses. Maybe you are a communications lead, maybe you're a strategy consultant, maybe you are a Python developer, whatever, the model doesn't know. So when we look at the example, I just asked to explain prompt engineering. And of course, I get the answer of what prompt engineering is. But then in my scenario, for example, when I'm a senior management trainer, I really want to know the value of prompt engineering to teach it to business leaders. And they have a limited technical background, so it should not be too technical. And I also want to keep it clear and concise, maximum 100 words, because we don't have time for more explanations. So if I just add this to my prompt, you can already see that the output is much more individual and tailored to my use case. And in a lot of applications, if you work, for example, with Azure OpenAI and developing an internal chatbot for your company, you can already set this role in the system prompt or in the context, as we mentioned before. But then you can also assign a role in every prompt that you do to really individualize and improve the output that you get. What we also recommend is adding additional information as a prompt element. Because AI, of course, can't read your mind. So you need to give it some kind of background to get a more precise answer. So you can tell in the prompt, for example, who is the audience that you're talking to? What's the purpose? Are there any constraints? And you can imagine that as briefing something, like briefing a junior analyst, for example. And the clearer you are in your information that you give, the better the result, of course. We can see in the example on the slide that I asked the model to summarize an email in bullet points. That's also what we got, of course, as an output. But then on the right side, we see that I added a bit more context to my input. So I asked to summarize the email in 3 bullet points and only focusing on what the leadership team needs to know to make decisions, which is important because in the email there's also some information about a dinner that they want to organize. And of course, this is not important for management. So this is something we can just ignore. And what also Jose mentioned before is to really specify where the email starts and where it ends by using parentheses or also hashtags you can use. And this will give you the output that you actually need as a part of the leadership team. And yeah, talking about this information that you can additionally give, you can, of course, also give examples. This is what we will have a look at next. And you can give one example, for example. And one example already will increase the quality of your output immensely. Because AI learns fast. And if you already give one example, it will match, for example, the tone, the structure of the example you give, which is perfect for internal communications, for any status updates or reports, product descriptions that you already have that you can just give additionally to the input that you give to the model. In our example here, we see that we want to write a mission statement for our new AI chatbot. If I just put this query to the model, it just assumes something because there's no additional information, no examples about the output that I expect. So we will get also a very generic output. But what if we give an example that we like? Then the model will match the tone and the structure, the length of the output, and you will get a very custom answer that will probably help you a bit more than if you just put the generic prompt to the model. We can also build on that by adding more examples, which is called few-shot learning. And here we see a similar scenario where we ask to write a statement for the new AI chatbot. And then instead of giving only one example, we give 2 examples, which is even more helpful because then the mission statement will get even more precise and yeah, individualized for your use case. And you can imagine this by just training the model. And by giving more examples, of course, we get more consistent results and we get a more consistent tone. This is especially helpful when you work across teams, for example, so that the output format or the output style is very similar. Which is also the next element that we want to talk about, which is the output format. So, which is also incredibly helpful if you're working with a model, is to define how you want the output to look like. And most users actually don't know this, that you can define how the output should look like. You can tell the model to create your output as a list, as a table, as a JSON, as a bullet point summary, as a CSV. You can imagine any format, Word, Word or PowerPoint. Yeah, can be anything. And this makes it, of course, incredibly easy to reuse than in your other tools like Excel, Teams, whatever, and it saves a ton of time. I can tell from my experience, it saves a lot. So yeah, what we can see here in the example that I brought is that we want again to summarize a project update email. And yeah, we can see just a generic prompt on the left, which just says summarize this, and then you get a summary, but you don't really know how the summary will look like. It's basically just bullet points about all the things that are said in the email. But then if we specify the output format, in this case, we want the highlights, the risks, the blockers, and the action items. And then we get a really nicely structured answer from the model, um, taking into account yeah, the format that we specified before. Yeah, and then something which is also super important is that you break down complex tasks. And yeah, this is also a good example where you see that the answer will improve dramatically. Here we see that I asked the model to plan the launch of our new internal AI chatbot. And also, when I prepared this example, I got a really, really long answer about some kind of launch plan that the model just imagined because it thought maybe it would be helpful for me. But
Hannah,
of course, yes,
so this is basically divide and conquer, right? It's clearly exemplifying how divide and conquer used by a LLM, right?
yes, exactly, exactly. But then if I break this task down into smaller steps, so I say, okay, start with preparation, pilot, team enablement, rollout, then of course I get a more precise answer that is actually helpful in my day-to-day work life. And now I'm curious to hear from you, Jose, how this looks like in real life.
All right. So let me share my screen,
Yeah.
Alex,
We
if you don't
switch
mind.
the stage, so the share will be on your side. But we have one question from Heike. She was
Yes.
asking, I learned that it's very important not to give contradictive directions. So that would be the topic from you both. Is it true or not? Is it so? What do you think?
I mean, depends what's your goal. If you want to have fun, yes, give contradictive directions. It's the same as a person, right? If I tell you, hey, Alex, I want you to do this, and then
Yes.
one moment after I tell you, don't do this. So,
Yes.
well, is that helpful? I don't think so.
You can just imagine this one talking to a child. If you tell the child to sit down and then in the same direction you say to stand up, it would be confused. So somehow this is the same also on these AI systems. You need to get in one direction because every time you learn to point what kind of information, what is your goal, if you have two different directions, you get only one, or perhaps completely worst case scenario, you get only a wrong answer.
Something that I'd like to add on this is that you can use this strategically as well if you tell the model to take on different points of view from, I don't know, like an expert on prompt engineering perspective. But then
Yeah.
you ask the model to take on the perspective of an HR employee, for example. Then you
Mhm.
can play with that as well.
That's
Mhm.
great. So Jose, we want to see something on
Yes,
examples.
let's do something that. So I'm going to show now in a way that I show, I don't tell. Uh, a bit what we have seen so far, right? What Hannah has been explaining, these different set of techniques, which are kind of the fundamentals of prompting. I try to avoid calling it prompt engineering because it's a lot easier than it seems. First, let's put the context. The context is in an AI consulting firm that it is doing generative AI projects. We have a contact form which is on the internet, so any kind of information can come in. And my main goal is this contact form. Usually, I use it to get projects to come in from potential customers. I want to triage it so I don't have to do the work, right? So I get first, and here in copilot.microsoft.com, I drag and drop Excel file, which is used by a tool. So in this case, the AI in this chat UI is using a tool to read the document, right? And I can ask a very vague question, tell about this context and tell me what to do next, right? So this is an example of what not to do. If we do this, well, it will interpret what I want. It's not really very clear. So it will put high urgency, high priority, medium, well, but I didn't never told it what I wanted. So this is helping. It's not helping at all, to be basic, clear. So let's start with telling it a role, right? One of the last things. So it's also my preference. I want to give it a role. So I'm going to create a prompt that my question to you all in the chat is, will you trust it at the end? So I'm adding you are expert commercial strategist working for a boutique AI consulting firm. Uh, I tell it what a bit the character and personality tailor what I want this AI to do, right? And I tell him it is a skill at spotting low-hanging fruit, something which is impossible to achieve, jokes, anything stupid that can come from the internet, which we will get, strategic matches that, okay, this is what we do best at our company, right? And also tell it that it's pragmatic, insightful, and very good at evaluating technical feasibility. Sounds like a challenge, right? So let's follow with a bit of a context now. I tell it about the company, a small but highly capable AI consulting, which its key expertise is fast prototyping AI solutions, POCs and MVPs, you know what everybody's doing, prompt engineering, LLM orchestration, training custom language models, and a couple more things. Not going to do a full detail, right? By the way, this hashtag is Markdown. I'm using it as a header so the AI knows that this is a section which I'm setting up the role and the context of akin to what Hannah explained as the best things to do. Next, I'm adding the input because I added something special, an input. So in order not to have any misunderstanding or interpretation by the AI, I'm telling exactly what data is coming in so it cannot misinterpret it, right? Because if your AI does not interpret what comes in, well, guess that what comes out, it will not be good, right? Your source is a spreadsheet, title, potential customers, contains these fields, and each row represents a contact, project request, etc. All right, now we can give it the instructions, which we use divide and conquer. Let me go up and show it. It's read and understand entries in the spreadsheet, triage all entries into fun, clearly humorous, absurd submissions from the internet. It's a no fit, so the projects are not for us, or it's a fit. And then on the fit, I want to assign a priority score based on it, speed of implementation, and confidence of success, right? So the things that our company knows how to do best, to prioritize them. That's pretty complex triaging, right? And then as output, I want this to be shown in a format, and I tell in instructions to follow a predefined format in a section that we are going to put in a moment. And to make it a bit more fun, on the main summary, I want relevant leads and the most delightful distractions, the fun ones. And the last part of our prompt is to put the output. And if we look at that, it's just a structure defining the report, a brief and engaging summary, general insights, a few of the most amusing fun entries, which why cannot it be fun? And I give it a structure using tables in Markdown that this will render. This is a text format used a lot by coders and wiki entries. I'm not going to jump into it, but basically this makes the full prompt defining input, output, character instructions in a set of separated instructions. And now I execute it. And we can get the main summary. It checks and gets 15 feed, 3 no feed leads, and 7 fund submissions. And define, for example, if we go here, I'm also asking a reason that the AI is doing. So I'm implying doing here chain of thought, which is also very good practice for doing this. So predict next year unicorn sightings. That's clearly a joke. Or build a working time machine by next week. Why not past week? Yeah, that would be a good proof test. And then no fit entries, which we can see. Endless joke generation. Okay, there's some things that I would say need a bit more triage, or we should check them by hand or improve a bit the instructions. But basically, they are pretty good done. Um, so some quantum, lunar rover in other trials should be or were appearing in no fit and now are appearing here. So we should always check our results and double test them or try one of the reasoning models, which at the moment I'm getting just a quick response and not a think deeper, which I could do, but in areas of time, I would not. Yep, that's it. That's an example of using the best practices. Of course, there's we can improve the model, and if we choose a thinking model, so if I do go these and then generate it, it should work. I cannot execute it again, so I'm not going to run it, but I will also add the complete prompt in an Excel file in the test so you can test it. So yeah, we could improve it, adding it to review itself and iterate on its own. And yes, we could do that, and it works wonderfully well. So we can add something which is called React, which is do a criticism on itself, and then um, review the output based on this criticism and improve it. So, and that also works really, really, really well. This shows the value of a properly built prompt, which I try to build it as solid as possible. And now I make you the question, and you can respond that in the chat. Would you rely and trust this prompt I just wrote? Back to you.
Oh, that's a great question. What do you think, Hannah?
That's a very good question, and something that you also mentioned, Jose, something very important actually that I would like to mention again is that you should always make iterations when prompting. So
Mhm.
it can be that the first prompt is already good, but then maybe you notice something is not as you wanted it to be. Then you can just add on that and make some iterations. It's completely normal to not get the ideal answer on the first try. So it's important to always play a bit as well.
Absolutely.
And yeah, what I would also like to mention here is that these techniques that you just saw, they are not some kind of technical trick or something. You can use them actually as business accelerators. So also every leader, everyone who uses those tools and learns how to prompt well can also then delegate faster, communicate better and clearer, and in general, just make better use of AI in their day-to-day work life. And again, if you want to know more about how to build good prompts and how to prompt efficiently, then you can have a look at the LinkedIn Learning course that Jose is launching in September. And we put the link again here on the slides, or probably also in the chat somewhere.
Mhm.
And it's definitely worth checking out.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
So we have seen an example from Hannah and Jose how to do the prompts. Let's see what is there behind somehow. So if we are going to a bit deeper on this one, we have our Copilot, what Jose was showing you in the demo, and then the user prompt is getting there. What we see then is that it's not enough somehow. It's not just a prompt or a query directly to the LLM to get your results back. So we are first are going to the Microsoft Graph, for example, to get our context and also content like emails, files, meeting, chats, calendar, whatever you want. In Microsoft Graph, we store, or Microsoft stores, the whole information about your tenant, about the users, about your groups, about what everything we see on the customer perspective in the tenant that will be shown from the graph. So it's called grounding in the second step. And of course, we have some plugins from external. We can use different sources to connect them and grab them if the information is not stored in the Microsoft graph, then we look going to have this one from the connectors. So that is one position. Then we are going further, then going to the third position. The prompt is already modified then, and after the pre-processing, after we edit some information to the user prompt from the first query, the prompt is passing then to the LLM that is running completely in our tenant. So there are no boundaries breaking there for the next tenant back to you. So that's only your data, because then your model would hallucinate. If I'm talking about myself in my tenant and then I'm asking for Hannah, if I would then somehow train this model to the data from Hannah's tenant and also from Jose's tenant, that makes no sense, because my LLM from my tenant would know something that never happens in our base tenant somehow with the end users from another one. So this is just performing here the queries, get some responses, but do not get these responses back directly to the user. So Jose was talking to the LLM through the Copilot, but then you have something like on the last step that you will call post-processing, with something where compliance and purview then are taking over and mention if this information is safe to get it back to the end user or not. So you have some policies there. You have some compliance also configuration there, that you want to not get everything back to the end user. If we are safe, then we are going to the last step, and then the Copilot responses back to the end users. What we see from the demos from Hannah and Jose earlier, we see only the first and the sixth step. So if we provide some context, of course, we provide some data, but everything in the backend, it's something what Microsoft provides for us. We can configure this one, but also using other resources. And then I'm going back somehow to Hannah to discuss what Microsoft is pushing right now, to discuss this central data hub called Microsoft Fabric. So let's see what we can do on this one, Hannah.
Yes. So Microsoft Fabric is also actually a very interesting and new tool that we can use to work with our chatbots, or also our LLMs. And Microsoft Fabric is a data platform that can basically sit underneath everything that we've discussed today. So it can unify all your data in one lake. You can do analytics, you have AI capabilities included, and it's still one secure platform. It connects all the tools that you would like to use, also Power BI, and you can build reports on that. And yeah, also make your data Copilot ready if you want to use that. And yeah, we can have governance and access control also built into Fabric. So we can scale AI incredibly powerful. As I mentioned, the foundation is one lake. So we can bring all different data from different sources into our platform, whether it is from Azure, AWS. We have many different connectors where you can ingest data seamlessly, even on-prem as well. And we don't need necessarily any data movement because we have shortcuts, we have data mirroring, and all of that. And what I would like to show now is actually how how it enables a full AI workflow from user prompt to real-time action using AI agents. So as a little context to the scenario we're seeing right here is that we, for example, launched a pilot of our internal AI chatbot. Let's call it HR chatbot because it helps employees to navigate through HR policies. And on the left-hand side, we see that an employee wants to know something. So he prompts something to the HR chatbot, and the employee asks, for example, if he is eligible for educational leave under the new HR policy. And then the prompt goes through our language model, which pulls then background from HR databases like policy information, location information, and all of that. Embeddings like an FAQ knowledge base, previous queries that users send to the chatbot, and then the AI uses Microsoft Fabric to orchestrate the response. So one lake, as we see here, brings together all the relevant data. Real-time intelligence checks the current approval flow, and Spark functions, for example, calculate the eligibility logic. And then we can see that the HR support agent prepares a response to the user query. For example, yes, you have 5 days of educational leave or whatever. And yeah, this is how the whole workflow looks like with Fabric. You can see that Fabric makes it incredibly easy to query through all the data. And this is also the tool that we would recommend if you want to build a chatbot which has internal knowledge as well.
Yeah, that is a great introduction on this one. This was really short somehow, but this Fabric topic
Yes.
is huge. Of course, we can talk for hours about this one, but what we see is directly we have some Azure Foundry services and all things we can just store on the Fabric. And there are some different roles, what you see here, and just use it, this one, as a data agent. We talked with Hannah a few weeks ago about this one on a conference. And what Microsoft is doing here is providing one kind of service to store everything on Fabric and then using it for whatever topic you want somehow. We have seen also on the level 2 something on AI pair programming. That's why a little bit of short explanation on this time, because we are already short on time somehow. But we have something like GitHub Copilot also. For some technical people here in this session, we get some user input. So something what Jose was showing as a developer, somehow you're talking to your Copilot, you use your own natural language, yeah? But then what Copilot recognizes here, it has to analyze the context, of course. It has to understand what are we talking about. Do we want to whatever buy a pizza or create some code or whatever get some reporting from Power BI? That is not even yeah. It's really tough if you think about this one 10 years ago. We have to figure out the context, understand the intent. You get this one nowadays with Copilot for free, whatever. It's directly there, magic. But we want also to generate response. So like it's something like a code. Then we can rank the suggestion, generate response, get the user feedback, and refine this one and get it one more time. This slide is from Microsoft Build 2025 from this year. That's a breakout session there. You can watch this one on your own. It's a 1.5 hour, I think, of explanation there. So, Jose, do I miss anything, or are we ready to go to show some code?
I would say we are good. We don't have that much time to add anything,
I
but
think so. So
you
we,
you were
we prepared a
really
demo somehow on this one that perhaps we can skip this one, but I can just show you what is there behind. You can just ask on create a web app using ASP.NET. There are certificates. They are using Microsoft Entra. After logging, you want to have some shortware, so some profile details and so on. And what is this information is going to do? The Copilot, the GitHub Copilot, starting to create the whole instruction. They are coding for you, creating the information behind. So we're starting completely on empty board here. In Explorer, there's nothing, and it's all creating by the Copilot. So it creates first MVC or Razor you can create and so on, and then you see the changes, and then you can keep or say undo whatever you want. And what we see here, we have our agent mode somehow. So it's create anything for us to show and also to do this kind of information here. If you see something on the green, that will be something like it was added by the Copilot, and then you can recreate somehow, and perhaps also say, okay, that is great, just keep this, that is a great code or not. Then you run this, and in the demo, what we do not have some time to show that now, you see that Copilot creates this kind of information, and then figured out, oh, there's a bug inside, and then recreates the code, so improves itself code, what I like somehow. If you want to say to someone how to learn to code, also on a prompt engineering style, how to create something from the Copilot, you need to ask perhaps the things here on the GitHub Copilot. There's a lot of information here, how to recreate your code, or also how to change and get this kind on running style. So last but not least, I think we are somehow on time to say we were talking on a blind session. It was for all professionals, including leaders, managers, and so on. We wanted to talk about prompt engineering, about the strategies, about the copilots, and AI pair programming, and AI productivity. Somehow we get all of this information there. I think we are good to say. So Hannah was here for Tackle Group. Jose is AI MVP from Switzerland, from Swiss Life, and yeah, I'm Alex, and also MVP as Jose, and we are happy that you have been this 1 hour with us. Hannah and Jose, do you want to add something to the stage?
Jose, do you want to go first? Should I?
you first, always.
Okay, perfect. No, I can just add on what Alex was saying. Thank you everyone for your interest and for joining the session. I think it's super, super important to really learn how to create meaningful prompts that also give you the output that you want, because then you can really accelerate in day-to-day life and work life. So thanks for joining and for inviting me as well, Alex and Jose.
I would like to say thanks, Alex, for trusting me on this. Also, thank you, Hannah, for being here with us and sharing your expertise. And I want to highlight what Hannah just mentioned and also explain on our slides and also demos. It's prompting is more important. If you don't prompt, you're not using the full potential of AI. You are getting 10% when it can be 80 or 90% of accuracy. So it's a vital skill today. And if you're not doing prompting and learning at least the basics, which we saw today, you're falling behind. So you know what to do.
Yeah, that's nice. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to meet you online here, and see you next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye
Ciao.
bye.